Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Feel like I
I am sick again, so I have a doctor's appointment at 10:45, so I'm going to leave a little early.
It's okay, Brenda. I'm sorry you're sick.
Yeah, it's okay. I just don't know. The doctor will figure it out. So, but I do need to talk to Junior. Um, Junior, can you give me a call? 541-571-7642. Debbie said I could reach out to you with a question about doing a pro bono help the daycare thing.
4762?
7642.
7642. I'm dyslexic, just so you know.
That's okay. No, I can be too. Mm,
Got it.
okay. Thank you, Junior.
Yep.
Second. We got some guests joining, and I may have sent them the wrong link. Ah, I sent them the wrong meeting link. Now, correct. Resent. All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, Junior. Hello again, Brenda. Hi, Karen. Hi, Ricardo, Richard,
Hello.
Bobby, Michael.
Morning.
Wow, that was such a simultaneous good morning. I love that. Well done, everybody. We have three big things for our agenda today, and we're going to be joined by Jarek Murray, who's signing on right now, and hopefully Stephen Brooks, who is working on our moderate income revolving loan fund program. There he is. I sent Jarek and Stephen the incorrect meeting links, so now they have the right ones. But we're going to hear from both of them in a minute. The things that we're going to do today are give you a quick update on the master planning process that we discussed in length at our last meeting. That one's going to be relatively short. Then Stephen is going to talk to us about the moderate income revolving loan fund work that he has been working on. And then Jarek's going to tell us about his company and the proposal that he and I have been working on for to give to you guys as a potential pilot for some of the workforce housing challenges faced by your city. So that's the three things for the agenda. Anybody have anything else they want to just flag that they hope we talk about today other than those big three? Okay. We'll also do a around the horn intro after I'm done with the master plan update, just so Jarek and Steven know who they're talking to. I think Steven has chatted with you once before via Zoom, so it's not all brand new, but we'll do that just to make sure everybody knows who is who. And when we do that, I'm going to ask maybe you just turn on your camera for that moment, just so that you can wave and see everybody, and then you could turn it back off if that's what you like. Okay. All right. First things first. Real estate development master plan update. So, the last time we met, you met Gary. We talked a lot about Developer 101 program coming to your city. We talked a lot about creating a pilot project for real estate development in Boardman. And we walked you through the timeline and the phases of what we think goes into a real estate development master plan. That was great. Fast forward like a week, and Carla said, "Hey, just a heads up, I think a whole bunch of the stuff that is in the scope of work might be happening in these other scopes of work." And then she shared those with us. And it turns out, yes, indeed, there is some overlap. So we're very glad we caught this now, but I wanted to flag two places where there's other housing work happening, and it will be our job to make sure that those are complementary to and not duplicative of the work that we're doing. The first is Cascadia Policy Group is working on a development code update for the city of Boardman. Raise your hand or give me a thumbs up if you knew that. We sort of knew that, but we didn't know what went into that. And it turns out they're going to be pretty comprehensively making recommendations for code updates. So instead of us doing that, we are going to feed our information to them. What's important for this group is like that's a whole chunk of time and budget that we just took right out, which is good. The second bit is that Carla has been working on a scope of work for the housing needs analysis, which is now called housing capacity analysis. These are required by the state. And essentially, they're doing a lot of the baseline data of like population trends, who's coming in, what demographics. And that was also part of the work that we were going to do. So now we're going to feed into that as well. So now we just took another chunk of time and budget out of this real estate development master plan work. At the end of the day, it's going to significantly make us go faster because we don't have to do those things anymore. And it's going to make the total cost of the project come down. Exactly how, we're not entirely sure because we just had this meeting on Friday. However, the big point to bring across to you is I think that there's a lot of planning work going on in your city right now, and it is our challenge to make sure that we know just how it all interlocks together. One thing that we are very confident about is that none of the planning work that you have been doing has physical implementation plans, what goes where, why, and in what order. None of the other planning work has that with regard to housing. So that key driver of what we're up to, the big site plans for the Frederickson property and the key site plan for the sort of your downtown Main Street core, the Good Shepherd site, is still very, very much in play. Gary, on our call with Carla, had a good analogy that I wanted to share with you. If you think of Boardman as like the most beautiful sweater you've ever seen created, right? There's many stitches that go into it. But right now, the sweater has some holes. The sweater has some big holes in very strategic places. And as your city changes, whether that's infrastructure, commercial development, your parks master plan, they all have different threads. And it's our job to make sure that all of those threads are coming together and making a whole. And so that was Gary's analogy. I thought it was pretty good, so I wanted to share it. So I wanted to give you this update. I was hoping that I would come and tell you, okay, here's all the work that we did the last week, but instead, a lot of the work that we did the last week was making sure we're not duplicating. So it's a small timeout, but it's an important timeout because it will save us time and capital in your budget. And we don't have infinity time or capital. So I'll pause there. Any questions? It's not the greatest update in the world. It's a hey, we were maybe going to screw up and we didn't. That's kind of the big update, right? So questions, thoughts, comments. Brenda, such a big sigh. I hope you're feeling better as the day goes on.
It's just hard to breathe when you can't quit coughing.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry, Brenda. Bobby, Junior, Ricardo, it's easier to see your faces. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
No, I'm just glad that we caught it before we got ahead of the
Yeah,
cart.
me too. Me too. Okay, if that's the case, I'm going to pause and we're going to go to Stephen Brooks, who looks like he's in a space shuttle. Hi, Stephen. And what we're going to do is just give me a quick moment, and please, we're going to do an around the horn introduction. I'll call on you. Just let us know who you are and who you represent serving on this housing committee. That's really for Stephen and Jarek's benefit. All right. So first things first, let's go to Junior.
Public Works Director for the city of Boardman, and have been on the committee since I was a county commissioner a couple of years ago. So I've been on it for a while and just a new role.
Thanks, Junior. Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby Barnes, work for the Port of Morrow. Yeah, been a resident since 2015. Hopes and goals to bring more housing to Boardman.
Thanks, Bobby. Ricardo.
Hey, Ricardo Rosales. I work for Banner Bank, and I've just been part of the Housing Advisory Committee and just looking to make some good change here in Boardman.
Thank you, Ricardo. Karen.
Well, it's me, and I I'm on the city council, and I was the city manager, and I just love Boardman. So working on this all the time, and I'm happy that you and Carla finally got together and got your jobs worked out.
Thanks, Karen. Brenda, sorry to make you talk.
It's okay. Brenda Prophet. I serve on the city council. I ran on the platform many, many, many years ago about improving housing in the city of Boardman. And I currently work as a center director for an 82-seat childcare here in Boardman. So I'm always trying to find ways to improve our town. And housing is a big one for me.
Thank you, Brenda. Feel better. Richard.
Let's see, let's start this video. Richard Rockwell, I've lived in Boardman since 1982, but my dad grew up in the area. They had a farm here anyways. So we've had a long connection to Boardman. Always interested in trying to improve Boardman, and I'm also on the city council and a number of other committees in Boardman.
Thanks, Richard. Michael.
Yeah, Michael Graham. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for Tillamook. Tillamook is very much dedicated to the community that we work in, and making sure that we have a thriving community for all members. And then personally, I moved here in 2017 and love it here. So personal interest that way.
Thank you so much, Michael. Stephen, can you reintroduce yourself, please? And Jarek,
Sure.
we'll have you go in a minute when we get to your part. Stephen, reintroduce yourself and then give us an update, please.
Sure. Stephen Brooks. So you can hear me? Yes? You can hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, excellent. Yes. So as you can tell, I'm in my car. I had, technology disappointment at home. So I'm at the local coffee shop where I can get internet access. So Stephen Brooks, my background is in community development finance and strategic planning, focusing on housing primarily, but also community development generally. I've been working with a number of jurisdictions on the coast on the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund program, trying to help set up, local um, programs for municipalities. And I've just started working with Boardman to try and stand up, Boardman's Merle program. In terms of updates, as you probably know, it's a very process-driven program. Each city has to pass an ordinance approving the program and then engage in negotiation with Oregon Housing and Community Services to have a master agreement with them. Boardman is more at the stage of introducing the concept to city council and stakeholders to prepare for the ordinance. The document itself is pretty standard, but I think introducing it to the community and getting kind of buy-in is really a key factor. So that's been going on. The legislature amended the program early last year, in the summer last year. There is now an option for a loan. It used to be that the only option was for the city to borrow money from Oregon Housing and Community Services and then make a grant to a developer. The city can now make loans to the developer, which is actually a pretty significant change, for reasons that if anybody's interested, I can go into, but I won't do it now because it's actually pretty boring. So that in some ways pushed the timeline for OHCS back because they're rewriting the program manual for processes and procedures. So there's a little bit of a kind of a longer rollout period. And then the other thing that's happening is that in different contexts, regional groups are looking at the possibility of having like a central program administrator so that each city doesn't have to manage the paperwork and the kind of monitoring on their own. So that's kind of in the works in different capacities. I'm working with a group called CCD, which is Coos, Curry, and Douglas County's Economic Development Agency. They're interested in providing that kind of service, and so we're hoping to be able to duplicate that in other areas in the state. So things are rolling out. It will take a little bit of time to kind of stand up a program in Boardman, mostly just due to what's happening at OHCS and kind of the bureaucratic process more than anything that Boardman needs to go faster on, if that makes sense. So that's where it is right now.
Stephen, I want to just reiterate a little bit of context because this committee has talked many times about this program, but I always think it's useful to just say why we're doing this and what
Sure.
this committee did. So as a reminder, we started talking about this back in September and October, and your committee recommended to the city council that we spend, I think it's $5,000 on contributing some capital to Stephen, which is Community Innovation Partners. That's what Stephen's firm is called, to actually be one of the pilot cities that stands up Merle, one of the first ones in the whole state, which you kind of are. There's not that many other jurisdictions at going through this process right now. The city of Coos Bay is also working very directly with Stephen, among other ones, but the Missing Middle Housing Fund is working with Stephen on Coos Bay and Boardman. So you guys contributed a small amount of capital to sort of get Stephen's brain and get his time as he helps stand this up for the city of Boardman and a few other jurisdictions across the state. That's why Stephen's here. So we gave Stephen some money, and now he's working with Brandon and the other folks at the city. And very specifically, Brandon is checking in with city councilors. I'm guessing Brenda, Richard, and Karen. He doesn't need to check in with you first because you came up with the idea along with your committee mates. But that's part of the process happening right now. Stephen, is there other context that these folks on this housing committee can think about as they relate to other cities across the state?
I think I do think that um, by the time, so again, for me, this is like a process that will unfold for every city that wants to do it. There's a certain amount of work that you just can't make go faster. Um, but I think that what that is going to allow us to do is really solidify the idea of having more centralized administration back office work. So um, it won't be, so the way I look at it is 3 or 4 months from now, we'll have an agreement with OHCS, the county, who I'm also talking to as part of this engagement, to get them. Okay, sorry, that is a new thing. Let me take a step back. There are two agreements that OHCS requires. One is with the city, which is a kind of a master loan agreement. The other was with the county, because the county is responsible for actually tracking property tax payments that are used to repay any funding that comes through this program. So OHCS also has a master agreement with the county. So I'm working with the county tax assessor, so that they're kind of working in parallel to get their questions answered and to get their information squared away, so that they can start talking to OHCS about having that agreement in place. So there's kind of two processes going on at the same time. Every jurisdiction, of course, looks at this slightly differently. Tillamook, in Tillamook, the county is the entity that's doing the loan program for every city in the county, which is a possibility, but most counties are not interested in playing that role. Tillamook County is. And again, so in Coos Bay, we've got a potential model where they're working with the Regional Economic Development Agency to be the back office. That's another model. So what we'll probably end up with in a few months is different models, one of which I think will allow Boardman to be able to say, great, we'll do this part, but then there'll be somebody else to do the back office part, and it'll be very efficient and easy. It always does, though, come down to identifying developers and educating them about the benefits of the program. And so part of the work we'll be doing is connecting, Nathan's work in terms of the what are we going to build and where is it going to get built with this new funding source. So that'll be another, and that'll be the city's primary role in all of this, is getting the information out to landowners and developers and other community members. So
Awesome. Stephen, one other thing just to keep in the back of your mind, and it's my job to keep it there, is that this group talked about at their last meeting having a developer roundtable. And the purpose
okay,
of that developer roundtable is really to say what works, what doesn't work in the city of Boardman from a red tape perspective, what funding mechanisms are helpful to actually getting something built in Boardman. And that represents another moment in time where we can literally educate developers about the Merle program specifically. So I just wanted
sure.
to keep that in the back of your head. I don't think I'd told you that yet.
Okay. Yeah, and I work for you guys, so if you want me to come out and be in Boardman, just let me know, and I'm happy to come out, spend some time, meet with developers face to face, walk through the program. It's one of those programs where it's a lot of process. So, it's you shouldn't be having to try and memorize all the steps. That's my job. So,
Stephen, I think we might be targeting March potentially
okay,
developer roundtable. So it would be a good time to meet the committee face to face.
sure. Just let me know. Okay.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Stephen? Because then we're going to let him go. Okay.
And if any questions obviously come up at any time, either ask Nathan for my contact or reach out to me directly. So yeah,
Perfect.
I'm on board. So just let me know.
Thank you very much, Stephen. As a reminder,
bet.
committee, it's your fault that he's here. So good job. Good job getting him. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so
All
much.
right. Thanks,
Stephen.
you guys. Take care.
Take it easy.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, and so the next person that we're going to introduce is Jarek Murray of Annam Housing. And I want to set him up a little bit. So, Jarek, just as a reminder, this is a committee that was formed across last year, 2025, and started really meeting in earnest during the summer. So, this group is still relatively new in the grand scheme of things. However, since the summer, it's our job, the Missing Middle Housing Fund's job, to bring them interesting housing technologies, interesting housing funding programs, planning work. So, as examples, we brought to this group Urban Form, and this group decided that would be a good use of the capital in the housing fund, which they are appointed to oversee. And what they then did was they recommended to the Boardman City Council, of which three of the folks on this committee serve, that a certain portion of capital go to a urban form project. And it happened. They put the money out there, and urban form as a software deployed across all of the city of Boardman and is now being used by both city staff and planners and developers throughout Boardman. Another example would be the Merle program you just heard about with Stephen Brooks. So we said, boy, this is an interesting thing happening in Coos Bay. The folks in Boardman ought to think about whether they wanted to be leaders statewide in standing up this funding source from the state. They did. And now Stephen is working with them very directly to stand it up. A third example would be this master planning process that we're undergoing with Iris Design. You heard me mention the guy Gary Reddick before. And so we brought in some master planning professionals to say, hey, if you're going to have development happening in Boardman, wouldn't it be good to plan that development and be able to communicate that to the folks who want to do something in Boardman or have never considered? And so that process is now underway. I give you these three examples, Jarek, because these are ways in which this committee has considered working with third parties to get something that matters done in Boardman. For the committee, I'll do a very brief intro on Jarek and his company, and then he'll do a much more robust presentation for you all. But a lot of the things that we talk about is building new housing. And one of the things that Jarek and his teammates obsess about is how do people coming into your city, whether they're potential employees, whether they are just folks coming to live in Boardman for one reason or another, how do they actually access the right kind of housing for them? How do they find it? How do they have the sports necessary to get into it and keep it? And if you're an employer, how do you actually have a service to point your people to actually see what are the options in my community, both from a resource standpoint and from an actual housing unit standpoint? And so Annam Housing, Jarek, sorry for the bluntness of my description. Annam Housing attempts to solve that problem. How we actually get the right humans that are coming into Boardman to find the right housing options instead of it sort of being the Wild West. Jarek, you'll correct everything that I said that wasn't quite right in a moment, but I would appreciate it if you introduce first yourself and then your technology, and we can move to your proposal.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you guys for taking the time to meet with me. As Nathan said, my name is Jarek Murray. I'm the founder of Annam. My background is real estate development and structured finance. I've done a lot of different things in real estate, worked in Washington, D.C., doing public-private partnerships, quality of life facilities. That's everything from convention centers to capital A affordable housing. Worked in affordable housing doing LIHTC, 4% and 9% projects. Had my own development company and ultimately ran a real estate portfolio for a Fortune 250 took over a $4 billion real estate portfolio and grew that to just under 8 billion during my tenure there. And the long and the short is I grew up in insecure housing as a child and always felt that housing was more or less the fulcrum asset of life, the asset that when removed, everything falls apart. And while I was working for this Fortune 250, I saw that as much money and resources that they had, they struggled to more or less match these, different incentives and different projects and all these different initiatives that maybe the city or they were putting on. It really wasn't getting to the people that needed it. And what we really serve is that connective tissue. So we've built a platform that matches residents with local housing aid. So all of the things that you guys just talked about, ultimately, when complete, can show up on the app in a way where we are able to screen and provide eligible candidates, making sure that not only those programs get utilized, but the data that's produced from the utilization ultimately flows back to the city to create better policy outcomes, allocate dollars more efficiently. So that experience is very simple. A resident can come to the app within a few clicks. They can be matched with a program that they're pre-approved for, and we support them along that way, basically giving them housing navigation services. And I could tell you everything about it, or it's probably easier for me to just show you. Nathan, Brenda, are you guys able to see that? You can just raise your hand if you can. Fantastic. So I'll give you a peek behind the counter, if you will, of how we're able to do that. So what we do, we ultimately engage with employers as a distribution strategy, and we give it to them for free, allowing their employees to have a whole host of housing benefits at no cost to them. Through that process, every resident, every employee, every member ultimately is able to create a housing profile. Now, we don't sell this data. We don't sell any, personally identifiable data. This is encrypted at rest, in transit, and in the field. However, we do use this to streamline the vetting process, the pre-approval process, and definitely fill out applications for our members. Step two is we have a whole list of programs. Heard you guys mention several programs on the call. I'm not sure necessarily which one goes where. The point is, there are plenty of nonprofits within the market, as well as our own national relationships that provide everything from cash offers to help people buy homes competitively, mortgage guarantees, lease guarantees, etc., as well as things as it relates to housing tutorials, or some of our nonprofit partners actually have secondary steps. So hey, they have to sign up for a seminar or what have you with if you apply for a program. Lastly, we're going to bring in actual housing stock. So that can be discounted housing, that could be affordable housing, that could be market rate housing. The point is that we have housing and programs here all available. Now, that is great, but nobody has clairvoyance. And this is really where the trouble and the problem that we really solve becomes, quite clear. People have jobs, they have things to do. Nobody knows all the steps necessary. So a member can simply work with Dorothy here, do a simple chat, or fire up a prompt. Dorothy's going to look at that profile, look at the things within our database, and then match them with whatever they need based on, that basically the information that we've developed. From there, they can go in, learn about that program, view that application, get a pre-approval from us based on that data. And obviously there may be gaps or things that need to be updated. We can more or less be the Iron Man suit for them and help them execute on those things. Ultimately, they can upload any documents, complete that application, to which that shows up in their envelope, and it can be sent off to the partner. Now, I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I actually have a dashboard that all of our partners have to receive this inbound. They love it because, they get to spend less time on administrative work and spend more time on the counseling and case management for especially those cases that need the help. But ultimately, we've created this ecosystem that works with a variety of different partners, but make sure that those solutions are available and easy for residents and community members. So I could keep going, but I'll stop there because I'm sure there will be questions and other things. Nathan, go. You're over here for me.
Yeah,
So
that's all right. Just because we've talked about this a few times, one of the things that I was asking Jarek about is like, okay, so if you're an employer, how do you essentially make this available to your either existing employees who are like,
yeah.
man, I live in the Tri-Cities, I work at, Tillamook or Boardman Foods or one of the data centers. I'm tired of driving 45 minutes. I'm going to get a different job unless I can find the right spot here in Boardman. How would an employer then use this tool or give access to this tool for that employee?
Yeah, so we have a very simple onboarding process. There's no technology integrations required for any employers. I mean, if they would like to, there's an opportunity there for that. But for the sake of your question, we have an onboarding process and an entire toolkit for once they sign up with us, they have materials. We give them a link. Their employees can simply hop on through the link. We have, again, in that toolkit that can be posted on Indeed with job offers, that can be provided in other employee resource items. So to make it very simple for HR finance teams to just plug in and play. So it's a very simple onboarding process that we initiate. In our proposal, we talk about more or less, we will come out to the market after a baseline survey. It's 11 questions. Many times in surveys, they discuss, hey, what kind of housing do you want? I don't want to take up too much time, but what the housing that someone wants is a derivative of their lifestyle. Got married, I need a different housing situation. I've had a child, I need a different housing situation. We talk about people's housing situations and where they are. And from that, it's actually better longitudinally, that's if you guys got that word, to match them with the solutions in the market and ultimately provide real-time data to municipal clients on unmet housing needs that allow them to ultimately say, hey, developer, we have this money for you, or we know that we need these types of units based on the data that we're getting month over month from Anna.
Cool. And I have one other question before I ask my
Please.
committee members. The other thing that I always think about is like, okay, I have units. Okay.
Yes.
I have units, or maybe I have some type of assistance, right? Like in Boardman, there used to be down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, for instance, right? So like, I've got units, or maybe I have a program that I hope people use. How does that get integrated into Anim?
Yeah, so I will show you very quickly. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes.
Perhaps? Great. So this is our dashboard for a lot of our CBO clients, so community-based organizations, community service organizations. If you have a program, what we're able to do is, let me move my monitor here. What we're actually able to do, you can create a program here. Okay, so fill out the basic information, fill out the eligibility criteria, and the onboarding will handle a lot of this for you. Um, but you can select any documents that are necessary for that, and then establish a workflow. Um, you know, adding personnel and assigning tasks. The point being is that once this goes live, it's going to show up to that pre-approved cohort that you've identified in that AMI range. You know, really cutting down on that engagement process. And through that app, those individuals will be notified of the program. One of the things that we've learned through the process is not necessarily that these programs or these housing units necessarily need more applications. They need better applications. They need complete applications from people that are eligible, as opposed to a bunch of applications that are either incomplete or coming from people that aren't eligible because they misunderstood the rules or they didn't really understand the nature of the program. We really look to eradicate that. So all of your dollars are pushing you forward on the things that you need to execute on.
I'll just give one like last example and then shut my mouth for a minute. As I think most of you know, I'm a choir director. That's a thing that I do. I co-founded and direct a choir in Portland. And my co-director is a baker named Bayer. Bayer the baker is a real person. And Bayer mostly has made pizza in their lives. And so Bayer grew up also pretty housing insecure, bounced around a lot. And Bayer's looking for a new place right now because Bayer has a roomie, and that roomie is going to move in with her boyfriend. And so Bayer's like, well, crap, I can't afford this place unless I have a roommate anymore. Bayer's, I think, 40 years old. And Byers says, how do I even start finding where I'm going to live next? Like it is such an overwhelming, daunting task. And this is in the city of Portland that has like, a million options theoretically. Buyers like paralyzed about how do I even do this? And the last time they went through this, I remember they went and filled out many, many applications. And to your point, Jarek, kind of screwed them up a lot. And so
Yeah,
left a lot of program assistance on the table and didn't get to the place they needed to be. And it was sort of a little bit of a nightmare year where my choir co-director was focused on a housing challenge versus, hey, I need you to teach this song. So I'm just
totally.
using that as a real life example from my life that impacted buyers' ability to like keep their job at the pizza place and do the next thing that they needed to do. So the big problem that's trying to be solved here is we've got housing opportunities, we have housing support systems, and then we have people that need both. And this is the glue and the facilitation between those, which is of use to a city, it's of use to employers, and it's of course most of use to the people looking for housing. I'm going to pause there and see what questions this committee has. They got your proposal last week, Jarek, and so they've seen that. I have a question from Brenda. I have to leave. I really like this idea. How does this work with current real estate, banking institutions, and other well-established services?
Yeah, totally. So
Thanks, Brenda.
there's a lot to say in each of those, but it's very painless. As far as real estate, we're working here in Southern Oregon with one of the largest property owners here. He has over 2,000 units, and then the largest property manager here as well. No cost, just on board, bring your stuff on. As it relates to banking, we have a lot of banking relationships. My CFO was CFO at Rivermark and other credit unions in the Pacific Northwest. So we're more than happy to work with bankers that are looking for lending, so on and so forth, to connect those with services and other well-established services. If you're talking about repair, maintenance, etc., we have those partners as well. We always defer to the market context first. Every place has a housing problem we've seen, but it's all a little different, and the people within the market understand that. So we're always looking to work with market partners, um, you know, throughout the process of our services.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Jarek.
that answered your questions, but yes, yes, and yes.
Thanks. Michael, looks like maybe you've got something on your mind. See you, Brenda. I hope you feel better.
Yeah. Can you go into some examples or demonstrate how this would work in a smaller or rural area such as Boardman and the pros and cons of what you created in large metro areas versus smaller rural areas?
Yeah, it's interesting because, without giving you a long answer, because we're an infrastructure layer, it's really dependent on, more or less the partners available within the market. Now we have our own partners, but it gets really robust when there's nonprofits, other CSOs, CBOs that can participate, right? So let's say no nonprofit wants to work with us. That's okay. We have 8, 9 of our own partners. It's just that they're national or regional players, and the community doesn't benefit as much. An area where we're getting set up now is Aspen, Colorado. They have about 4,000 people. Most of the people that keep the city of Aspen running live other places within the Roaring Fork Valley. So we're taking a valley level support. And there's been some other interesting solutions that have come out of that. But what we've seen a lot of, less on that for that community, and mind you, the median home price is like 7 million bucks. Less on the ownership side, much more on the rental support side. Lease guarantees, prepaid rent is a product that we have. It allows basically landlords that are experiencing certain levels of vacancy to get their money up front, and it makes it cheaper for our members. So much more rental support there. With Boardman, I haven't done a massive dive into the affordability component, but my assumption is there are people that definitely want to buy, and there's not enough supply. So we have developer relationships that we're even deploying in Aspen, for instance, to bring units to bear, because we have a lot of the data on what people actually need, not what they're saying they need, but how they're actually living. So we can put units in front of them and opportunities in front of them that they can secure. That's a very long way of saying we really don't see any difference. We see difference in services, but not necessarily a massive difference in how we operate, be it a small community or a large one. We have a deal in New York, for instance, that we're working towards. So really depends on what the community needs. That's what we're going to support.
Thanks. Yeah, you answered it well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bobby?
I got a question. What type of workforce have you seen your program work best and directed towards?
Yeah. Again, it's everyone has a housing problem we've seen. If you're talking about some of our subsidized programs, it tends to be more in the manufacturing, distribution, general retail space. If you're talking about just general usage, then that's definitely people that I would say 80% of the area median income and above, but they don't tend to use some of the subsidized things. What they are really using is like, hey, a loan referral, or they are we're getting them connected there, or we're getting them connected with someone that needs repairs and maintenance, or we're getting them connected with, some other home related service. But we've become this kind of central place for everyone to come, again, which creates data that is very valuable to the municipality, because then I didn't show you this on the dashboard, but they can basically segment things by demographics, see where the pain points are, and then ultimately target programs of dollars towards those cohorts. So we built this to support the 80% of area median income and below, truly. However, we realized you really can't do that if you don't understand really the whole market, because housing or affordability is what we're trying to solve, is not only a personal decision, but a relative one. So if you don't know what the person making $200,000 is spending on or driving up the home prices, you're actually not positioned well to, provide aid to the people that don't have as much buying power. Many of those programs miss the mark. For instance, last thing I'll say, in Bozeman, they had a down payment program initially where it was like giving people an extra $5,000 on their down payment. Now, yeah, sure, an extra $5,000 is great, but when you're talking about down payment, when the homes went from 500,000 to 800,000, and then
Yeah.
it takes two months to qualify, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
why am I forget it? And they were like, nobody wants to use our program. I was like, because guys, like, look at the market.
Yeah.
So we help provide more context on that. And just again, we like to look at it as giving municipalities, giving counties the Iron Man suit so they can do all the things they need to do.
Yeah. One more question.
Sure.
Boardman their workforce is different. We've got
Yeah.
8,000 jobs, hit or miss, and about half that in residents. Have you seen anything like that working your
Aspen.
program? Aspen's a lot like that.
Yeah. So again, not from the pricing standpoint, but the fact that the community swells to a very large side because there's massive influx for people that are running the coffee shops, the restaurants, cleaning the roads, the streets, you know, all the city labor cannot afford to live in Aspen, right?
Yeah.
As such, this really gets back to the point that maybe we're working with Aspen, but we ultimately got the app in the hands of residents within the Roaring Fork Valley, because that's really the only way to support it. Now, Aspen gets the data. If Snowmass does not have a deal with us, they don't get the data, even though they still
Right.
may have the problem. So that is really how we address that challenge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got another one, Jarek. For the most part, when you and I have been talking, it's really, hey, the city at the end of the day is, taking this on as a pilot so that this can be provided to the employers
Yeah.
for free, more or less. Um, what does the city essentially get in exchange? You keep talking about this data.
Yeah.
Walk me through why a city would care about
Yeah, totally.
having access to this dashboard or data.
Yeah, so one of the things I believe you mentioned earlier on this call is that some of these housing studies are kind of mandatory, and a lot of the work around that tends to be, very like eagle eye, like doing these housing assessments, what's the vacancy, what's this, that, and the other. And it's supposed to represent the challenges of the community. And it does. But what we've learned, again, having been a real estate developer, I totally get that approach. But one of the things that I've learned is that most housing data is either census data that's kind of like old and like stale and doesn't really represent what's going on today, or it's talking about housing from an investment perspective, like land costs, construction costs, interest rates. Those things are important, right? But they don't matter as much to the person living in your community or that works within your community struggling. What they are having is a variety of barriers that, prevent them from moving along the life cycle of housing. Because we're able to capture those kind of data points around those barriers, we can then reflect that to the municipality where they're able to see this real time flow of what their community is doing. And instead of, again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like and you, Nathan, talk about this. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to say, hey, let's spend $10 million to build housing. But the very next question becomes, well, what type of housing? Okay. And then we go through a study and then we're trying to figure it out. And then the people, because the lead time is so long, people you survey probably aren't going to be the people living in those units. Right. So what we really do again is show them a mirror real time so they can actually look out, plan, aggressively, but also proactively so they can meet the market with solutions organically. And what we've seen is that when you have better data on the actual challenges, not only can you allocate dollars to make sure those challenges can be overcome, but you create more buyers, you create better renters, and then you don't need to subsidize units as much because people are qualified, people have the dollars because they're solving these other things. We see it more as we see housing as a system as opposed to a market, is probably the most concise way to say it.
Thanks, Jarek. Other comments or questions from our committee? Going once, going twice. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Jarek, first off,
Yeah.
thank you for introducing this to the committee and entertaining our questions. As they know, they've got a proposal from you. We're going to chat about it right now. We've got 15 or 20 more minutes left in this meeting, and then we're going to come back to you with questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Come back with you for questions. It's my job to bring those back to you. They may ask for a little bit more of your time, et cetera, or give you feedback on the proposal, but we're going to get that conversation started. So
Okay.
really appreciate it. Jarek, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Yeah, likewise. You all take care. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me out.
All right. Thanks so
See you
much.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bye now.
All right. So, thanks for that. Comments, questions, thoughts that maybe you want to bring up now versus before?
Did we get a cost for his program?
Yeah, I believe his proposal, I think, is 50K. Is that right? Am I remembering that? Maybe. Does anybody have it in front of you? I should have had it in front. Sorry about that. But I'm pretty sure that's it. But go on.
That was that was really it. Seems like a lot of money. Do you
Uh,
have you worked with them before?
no, I have not. So this is I've known Jarek because of the housing circles we both go in um, for some time, but I have not done a project with him. No.
I'd be curious to speak to someone that has and see what type of like you can ask him till you're blue in the face and you'll get the answer that I think he probably wants us to hear. Now, whether that's a problem, I don't know, but I would be interested in talking to someone that's ran his program. And
I think that's very reasonable, and we ought to do that. Also, I'm looking at what I sent you, and it feels, did I send you two?
I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't show anything about a cost on the one that I've
Did it
got.
just get chopped off? It seems like I
Yeah, it
just,
looks like it's chopped off. Exactly. Yep.
all right, hold on. Let's go get the better one. My bad.
No problem.
Um, but I think I'm remembering that correct. Um,
Yeah. So I got to jump off. I got a lot of technical questions that come along with this. How does this work? Once again, the power is, as he stated, is the amount of participants, both, I would say, those looking, uh, those building, and also those providing services, right? The more you get involved, I can see, and great tool. I mean, any tool that can combine, all those aspects. And that was, I just named three and there's more. And you're right. Every housing situation is complex. And I look at, I've been used to different industries that provide that kind of service to, as they hire employees in, and they have whole departments dedicated to this kind of concept. So an employee can come in and feel like, okay, I know what my choices are, I know what my options are, and that's a huge selling point. And to have something like that, I can see for businesses would be really beneficial. But if it's used, my big question is usability, especially in our culture and just around Boardman and getting everybody to kind of align. Now, if this, and I think I would want, as we discuss this, maybe get some perspectives from other people and seeing how it's worked and maybe getting a little more feedback. I could talk about Tillamook, but I'm not so you know would Lamb Weston uh, uh, really do they have something else that's supplementing it? And is there a conflict that way? And so just people's desire to really support it if we make a choice to go with something like this.
all good questions. And I just opened it up and I resent it to you so you have it. Um, and I see you've got a hard stop right here, Michael, but their proposal would be to work essentially to gather all the data by quarter three and then launch it in quarter three. And if at any time during that sort of 6 months leading up to Q3, we decided we don't like this, we just kind of back out. So he has like off ramps, I believe, but why don't we do this? Because now you have the better version, which by the way, I think actually the good version is posted on your website. No, Michael?
Nope, it came up exactly the same as last time.
Oh, gee.
Yep.
Okay, one second.
Weird. Weird.
I think maybe I'm screwing it up.
So yeah, I need to jump right now, but I would like, maybe get together back as a group and discuss it after, we can see the full proposal and what's done and follow up with this. So very intriguing. I would say very, very intriguing, but uh, you know, to me, the $50,000 individually is expensive, but collectively it's a bargain. So
Mhm.
Michael, before you get off, I found some info on it. It says that when there isn't much for housing available in Boardman, it shifts gears and goes towards data for like our committee specifically. It's so the answers are how many workers actually want to live in Boardman. It identifies the price points at where our housing market is missing. It helps said employees understand the costs of not having housing, and it gives city leverages for developers. So it goes from finding housing to more of a tool for us.
You should have the right one now, Michael.
all right, gotta jump. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So far I'm hearing a couple points of feedback. Number one, it would be really, really useful to dig back into the proposal and meet again. And second, it would be really, really good to hear from some cities that have used this, right? Okay, Junior?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have several things. Yeah, the people at my window asking if they can come in and talk, and I'm telling them no. So
Yeah, we're multitasking man over there.
yeah.
Well, any thoughts or comments, Junior, Richard, or Karen?
Not that haven't been asked and answered pretty much. Yeah, it almost seems to me this would be more of a tool for like a MLS company or multi-listing company than it would be for the city. But after Bobby's comments, then I see there are other options that they can help the city decide what kind of developers we need to be looking at. So, which I think we're already doing, but yeah.
That's it, Junior. The question is if it's questions we can't answer ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are limited where we are. It's only so many developers who are willing to come to Boardman, just like there's only
Right.
so many people willing to live in Boardman. I don't think it's Aspen's a whole different game. It's very expensive to live in Aspen. It's a high-end community. Boardman's not the high-end community, but I think Boardman's struggles are more because we don't have the infrastructure to make people want to move here. So I think our angle to get more housing and more people moving here may be a different avenue, which I don't know that Anam is the one that would do that per se.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
it does. I mean, part of the problem they're trying to solve is that, your vacancy rate is extraordinarily low, right? Just like Aspen. The price points are different, but the vacancy rates are more or less the same. Bobby pointed out, you got 8,000 humans coming to work. You got like 5,000 people that live there, and half of those are kids and seniors. So, you've got an influx on the daily of like 5,500 people. The challenge would be if any of those want to live in and around Boardman, how do they find the right fit? Does the right fit exist? If they can find it, can they afford it? If they want to buy a house, can they find the right mortgage assistance, the right mortgage period, the right lending part, whatever, right? This streamlines that. I think in Jarek's experience, he did a lot of work in Medford and the Rogue Valley. Um, that's where he was based, is the southwest corner of Oregon. And in their experience, what was going on was all these employers, kind of to Michael Graham's point, all these employers were like, my biggest problem now is housing. It's not like finding the right skills. It's not finding the right people. It's like when they decide they may want to work for us, they can't live here, so they don't take the job. And so that was a big problem they were trying to solve. And those employers, it's not their bread and butter to like figure out all the housing options and how to support their inbound or existing employees. So those employers may or may not be willing to pay for this kind of thing, but it's all one-off, right? It's like Lithia Motors, go. Walmart, go, right? Pizza shop, go. I think the reason Annam is approaching cities is because cities say, I got lots of employers. I don't really care that one of them wins versus another. I want all of them to win. And individually, they can't
Right.
figure it out. Collectively, if we could provide that service, there would be that benefit. Michael sort of said it right, right? It's like a problem individually, collectively, it's powerful. So I think that's what they're trying to solve. I think we have a lot of questions to ask about whether it's the right fit, if it's the right price, that's that kind of stuff. But um, I can start asking those questions and get us some of his existing customers to to ask as references. Would that be of use?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
My curiosity is how do they survey how many of the 5,000 or more employees in the Boardman area are willing to move to Boardman? Or are they happy living in Hermiston and driving 25 miles, or in Tri-Cities and driving the 45 miles?
Right.
Because there's a lot more amenities in those towns. They have what they need. They live here, they still got to drive to those places to get those amenities. So what's the difference of driving to work, except you do it 5 days a week versus 2 days a week? So
That
I,
brings us.
I wondered the same thing, Junior. How are they getting their data? And it makes me wonder if Boardman has sent out a survey or anything along the lines to answer some of these questions. I don't know if Richard or Karen know if that's been done, but that could be useful information that would help.
I would assume that that's coming from chamber data too. I mean, that's kind of their purpose.
Yeah.
But I don't know of anything that the city sent out that isn't chamber related. So that might be a question for Brandon.
well, it'd be hard for the city to get those questions out to people that don't live in Boardman, and that's who you're targeting, are the people who don't live in Boardman. It's more of a job for the employers to do, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
At which chamber could do through the employers if they're chamber members.
Mm-hmm. Karen, any thoughts from you? Oh, no. Ricardo, I can't remember if we've circled back to you. I think you were one of the first. Oh, Karen just clicked on.
Well, I finally figure out the buttons. I think the chamber and BCDA both have done a lot of work on this because, when we did the $5,000 for if you're going to buy a house here, there was a lot of effort put into who would want to live here and why they don't. Because, aside from no housing, schools and those kind of things and medical availability and stuff are important, and people keep reminding us of those.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I would really like to get Tori from BCDA in the chamber to start being part of this group, or at least listening, because I think she could add a lot of input to our discussions.
Yeah, we can figure out how to make that kind of stuff happen.
Well, I was just going to send her an invite. So,
Well, I would wait on that. We got to make sure that passes your bylaws and your muster. Let's make sure that so far we don't have any regular recurring guests other than city employees. But I can check on that. That's not hard to do.
well, I talked to Hammond about it, and he said these are public meetings and they're listed as public meetings, and that I can invite anybody I like.
Okay.
I
Well,
like that.
news to me, but that sounds great. If he said it and you say it, then I believe it.
Well, it's on our city calendar, I think.
That's true.
And I went and looked, and so and I don't know, but there's a couple people that I think should be listening at least to these conversations.
Lucky for us, we record all of them and then post the recordings. So they're
Right.
all available. Okay, so we're almost out of time. But what I'm hearing is let's hear from some references. Let's get an opportunity to review the proposal in depth. Let's get an opportunity to ask more questions. What I will do is by the end of the week, I will see which of these questions I can get answered, and send them out. And hopefully that's a tickler for all of you to remind you to read that proposal and ask more questions. And meanwhile, then I'll also get from Jarek at least two, maybe three different cities we can talk to about their experience. Does that sound like a good plan of action? Okay.
I would like to say, okay, is my understanding of this that he would work with people that maybe aren't familiar with buying real estate? Because that's what you really need is people
Yes.
that will tell you, kind of hold your hand and say, oh, this is first step, second step. And don't get discouraged if you're turned down or you don't have the job you need now, but this is the process. Is that what he's proposing?
That is a big piece of it, yes.
Well, that makes a lot of difference in my thought of this because it seems to me like that people that are buying their third house maybe has some understanding of real estate and how it's moved and paid for. Where if you're just 25 and your mama signed for your car payment, you don't know squat about getting involved in a $200,000 debt.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to figure out, or I need to figure out if that's what he's proposing.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing either, Karen, and I just did it.
Well, I'm 80. I don't know. I'm trying to work it out.
Yeah.
So,
All right. On that note, I think we'll shut down for the day. Um, I will get back in touch you by the end of the week with what I've learned. And then we'll keep in touch before our next meeting, which is in February. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. Really
Thanks.
appreciate the time and wisdom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Okay. Take it easy, guys. See ya.